Of the harbor, peacefully with the roar of engines, the sound of bombs. Fighters and bombers wave of 189 arrived by shouting the success signal Tora was sent back to the carrier task force before the first bomb fell. A single remote radar station spotted the incoming raiders, but mistook them for a flight of B-17 due in from the mainland. The B-17s arrived and, like America itself, find themselves in a war that had not been declared. The attack from the Japanese aircraft carriers Akagi, Akaga, Kiryu, Soryu, and two new carriers, the Shokaku and Suikaku, lasted over 2 gruesome hours.
When the first bombs began to fall, pilots all over the island jumped into action. At Wheeler Field, Lieutenant Philip Rasmussen woke to the sound of bombs, jumping out of bed, strapping on a 45 caliber pistol over his purple pajamas, and ran to a working Curtiss P-36 bomb. He was joined by 4 more P-36 pilots, Louis Sanders, Harry Brown, Gordon Sterling, and Malcolm Mike Moore. They took off to engage the attacking Japanese and managed to shoot down a few of the Japanese Zeros, valves, and Ks. The number of enemy aircraft were incredibly overwhelming. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the island, Kenneth Taylor and George Welsh were just returning from an all-night dinner, dance, and poker party. These brave pilots, still in their formal dress clothes, raced to a couple of P-44 Hawks, got them fueled and armed, and took off. They quickly found themselves in the middle of a real battle. These 2 pilots caught up with the Japanese close to Pearl Harbor and Hickam Field and engaged the Zeros, valves, and Ks with rounds from their 30 caliber machine guns. However, they quickly ran out. Luckily, they were able to land at Wheeler Field, which is near the center of the island. They refueled and reloaded with 30 and 50 caliber ammo and took off once again to fight the Japanese. The 2 pilots are credited with downing a total of 6 Japanese warplanes before their own planes were disabled. Both pilots received a Distinguished Service Cross for their actions of infamous day. A total of 500 U.S. airplanes were on the ground at the beginning of the task. Sadly, 188 were totally destroyed, 159 damaged, and 155 aircraft lay on the ground in various stages of disrepair.
The first wave of 183 Japanese Zeros, valves, and Ks hammered Hawaii for an hour and 40 minutes. Then came the second wave of 177 airplanes to continue the strafing, bombing, and torpedoes for another 120 minutes, 2 solid hours. A total of 360 enemy warplanes. As the attack proceeded in Pearl Harbor and Hickam Field, the devastation was awesome. On the eastern edge of Ford Island, in the center of the harbor, 7 of our battleships lay in berth. The California, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Tennessee, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Utah, and the Arizona. The Japanese hit first with K torpedo bombers, just like you see in front of you right now. The initial wave of Kates hit the Oklahoma, California, Nevada, West Virginia, and the Utah. These Kates were equipped with special shallow-running torpedoes designed specifically for the attack on Pearl Harbor. You see, the shallow waters in Pearl Harbor would not allow the use of normal deep-running torpedoes. This would take away any claim that the Japanese might make that this was a target of opportunity. No, this was a well-planned attack. Then came the Val dive bombers, armed with 1,700-pound armor-busting projectiles made for 16-inch battleship guns, but converted to aerial bombs. These planes dived down on the Nevada and Arizona. Anti-aircraft fire veered the Vals away from the Nevada on the first wave, but the Arizona wasn't that lucky. A bomb from a Kate bomber stabbed the Arizona through her forward magazine and exploded, touching off more than 1 million pounds of gunpowder. A sailor on the Nevada watched the Arizona jump up at least 15 to 20 feet in the water and break into two, forever entrapping 1,200 American servicemen in an underwater tube. The ship sank in less than 3 minutes and remains to this day at the bottom of Pearl Harbor.
At Marine Corps Air Station Iwa, Private First Class Melvin Thomas was on guard duty when 9 Zeros attacked the base. He stepped out of his guard shack, drew his .45 caliber pistol, and began firing on the enemy planes. A Japanese pilot, Yoshio Shiga, saw Thompson firing back at them. Years later, Shiga remembered Thompson's tenacity and fighting spirit, describing the lone Marine as the bravest American I've ever seen.
Just told him.
All over the island, soldiers were bringing their weapons to bear and fight. Anything they could get working. Their .45 caliber pistols or Springfield rifles. And in some cases, our soldiers were able to get 30 and 50 caliber built-fed machine guns into action, bringing down numerous marauding Japanese Zeros, Vals, and Kates. Meanwhile, at Bellon Airfield on the northeastern coast of the island, more U.S. Army pilots were racing for their P-40s. Unfortunately, Japanese Zeros appeared at the same time and started strafing runs. One P-40 pilot was killed as he stepped into his cockpit. 2 other P-40s were shot down just as they got off the ground. The flight of 12 B-17s coming from the mainland finally arrived and were immediately packed by the Zeros. Unfortunately, in all of the confusion, the B-17s were shot at by friends and foes. The frightened crews landed wherever they could, one of them in a pineapple field not far from Pickens Field. A B-17 pilot, Major Landon, trying to land, said, "What a hell of a way to enter a war. Out of gas, unarmed, and no place to land." Amazingly though, 8 of those B-17s actually made it to Hickam Field.
You can imagine what it must have been like with 360 Japanese fighters, bombers, torpedo planes at Pearl Harbor and Hickam Field, actually all over the island of Oahu, that fateful day of December 7th, 1941. We can take you back to that day. You remember it was a surprise message that was sent back to the carrier transport. Tora, 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 which meant that we did not anticipate the Japanese and they caught us completely by surprise. Listen to the sound of gunfire, the roar of the engine, and you can just imagine what it must have been like that fateful day. The Cape torpedo bombers dropping those special shallow running torpedoes high overhead, the Zeros doing strafing runs and dropping light bombs. Yes, this is it, the surprise Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Tora, Tora, Tora. We're taking you back to December 7th of 1941. At the conclusion of the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, more than half of Americans nearly 2,400 Americans were killed. Over 1,200 wounded. At the time, 960 were missing. 188 aircraft were destroyed. 159 damaged. Just 155 aircraft left on the ground. 2 battleships, 3 destroyers, and 2 light cruisers were destroyed. 6 of our battleships were damaged. Our greatest naval base lay in ruin, but I might add, along with our complacency. The following day, December 8, 1941, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt announced our entry into World War II with these words to Congress, the citizens of the United States, and the world.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1940.